Welcome, folks. Give everybody just a minute or two to find their seats, store their overhead luggage. Emily, in case this webinar experiences a rapid decrease in pressure, an oxygen mask will drop from the ceiling above you.
Yes,
I want you to put that mask on yourself before you help somebody else.
correct.
I could
And
have been a
there's
flight attendant.
and there is a floating device underneath your seat.
Your seat can be used as a flotation device in the event of a water landing.
Correct.
Yeah. We're just going to give everybody just a minute or two. We always start right on the top of the hour, but we'll give those last few stragglers a chance to come through. We'll do official introductions in just a minute, and we'll do some basic housekeeping now, which we'll repeat again. Over the course of this webinar, if you have a question, please use the Q&A feature so that it'll pop up. We have some Holistiplan folks looking at that Q&A box that might be able to answer your question directly. Anything that gets left over, if it's something that Emily and I can answer, we'll do our best to answer it. I will say this again, even though I joke about this, but this is true. For those of you who are familiar with who I am, I'm Ben Birken. I'm the Vice President for Customer Support here at Holistiplan, and I run the support team. The most common question that we get at Holistiplan is not tax related at all. It is this webinar being recorded? That is the most commonly asked question. And my promise to you is, unless we mess up, we record every webinar, every single one. We always send a link out. Maybe it takes a day or two for you to get it, but if you miss something, don't worry about it. The webinar is being recorded, and we will send a link to you if you have to jump off early. Totally get it. You'll get the recording for this webinar in a day or two. Okay, so with that in mind, Emily, I'm going to go ahead and say it's time to officially get started. What do you think?
I'm ready. Let's go.
You're ready. Okay. So welcome everybody to Streamline and Strategize, Unlocking Holistiplan's new tools. My name is Ben Birken. I'm the Vice President for Customer Support and Engagement here at Holistiplan. I am joined by my colleague, Emily Wetter, our customer success amazing person. And we are here to talk to you all about a couple new features within the Holistiplan system. They're actually not super new. Like, they've actually been around for, I'll say, like a couple months or so. We just haven't made a big splash about them. But we thought this would be a good opportunity for us to walk folks through these tools to help really more streamline your workflow, I think, as opposed to getting into the nitty-gritty of tax planning. It's how can you use the tools that are embedded within Holistiplan to make your process that much better. Does that sound about right, Emily?
That sounds exactly right.
Okay. In doing that, I'm going to share my screen here. And we're going to take just a quick walk through memory lane for just a minute. I am in the household section here at Holistiplan, and this is our internal stuff. So these are not real people, even though they might look like real people. I promise you, they are not real people. And the first place I want to go to is a tool that's been around for a while, which is our tax letter staging tool. The tax letter staging tool, let's actually do this for 2023. The tax letter staging tool, of course, I've done this in such a way that nobody, awesome. There we go. The tax letter staging tool is meant and was meant for folks to be able to work their way through process-wise the preparation of the tax letters that they do on behalf of their clients, so that those same clients can then provide them to their tax preparers so that you can avoid issues on the tax return. So remember, it's your opportunity to document things like, I did a QCD for this client on June 30th for $5,000, or we did rollovers, or we have these documents that they should expect, right? The webinar here is not meant to be about the tax letter, but we're going to use it as our launching point. The tax letter staging tool allows you to see across all of your clients whom you have started a tax letter for, whom you haven't started it for, who you sent the letter to, and then if you did send it, or if it's in draft form, an ability to actually go in and look at this letter. So it's really meant to be an organizational structure so that you didn't have to look into each individual household to see, where am I with regards to, did we do a tax letter for this person? Have we reviewed it? Have we sent it? Can we move on? Right? This was our first attempt at bringing this workflow organizational structure to Holistiplan. right? Emily, was there anything that you wanted to touch on here related to this before we kind of jumped into kind of the next two tools?
Yeah, I think just from a customer success standpoint, especially because tax letters and creating them will be coming up probably in about a month here or less than that, you might get started on these. And when you think about streamlining your process, and I can speak to this from personal use of Holistiplan as an advisor when I was a practicing advisor on a team. And this is going to be a similar concept when we hop into some of the other tools, but you can invite other people to be part of this process on your team. And I'll mention that in just a moment when we talk about the tax return staging screen. But if you are working on tax letters, sometimes that can be a manual lift to start and create those, especially if you're a new user with us, getting used to the tools available. But if you see that status there along the right-hand side on Ben's screen, you can actually change that status for each of the letters that you're working on. So you might assign different statuses or when letters are in certain status states to different team members. So for example, maybe you have someone who starts the letter and there should be one where it says started draft, and then someone else hops in and they grab all of those that say started draft and they get them ready for maybe like final review, and then that moves on maybe to like a lead advisor or something like that, and they ultimately complete it and send it on to the client
That's
or
right.
push it. Yeah.
Yeah, or push it out to whoever is going to get it.
Mhm.
Now, I did see somebody ask a question, what does a tax letter look like? We can spend just a second here talking about this. This is what the tax letter looks like. Again, this is just a sample. Your mileage may vary with what you want to put on and include, but this would be for this particular person in 2022, the tax documents that they were expected to receive, any sort of activities that you did on behalf of the client or that you knew about. Um, just really the goal here was predominantly there are things that maybe kind of sort of are covered with the tax documents that your clients get, right? The 1099s, all those things, but not always the complete picture, right? So, you might need to tell a tax preparer that there was a Roth conversion because a 1099 might just show a distribution, right? And the resulting Roth conversion form might come actually months after you actually have submitted the tax return. Qualified charitable distributions are a big one, right? So you as the advisor might know that you did a qualified charitable distribution, but the custodian 1099 is not going to code it that way. And unless your client is really good at telling their tax preparer what they did, you run the risk of the entire IRA distribution being taxable when you knew that some or maybe all of it was actually not taxable because it was a QCD. So it's a way of getting ahead of some of those common issues that might result in an amended return. It's also a great just touch point, to show your client's tax preparers, look, we're in this together. I want to make sure you have all the information you need to do your job as well and as efficiently as possible. So this is the letter, but again, where we just were was the staging screen where you can see all of this across your whole firm, right? As opposed to looking in each individual one tax letter. All right. So we're going to use this again as our launching pad. This was the first one of these that we did. And then we realized there are more opportunities here to help people govern their workflow, right? Govern's not the right word, maybe oversee, monitor their workflow, at least as it relates to, stuff inside of Holistiplan. And the next logical step for us was, I don't know why we didn't start here, but the review of somebody's tax return, right? That's how Holistiplan started. That's how most folks first interact with Holistiplan is they upload somebody's return. And so we now have, similar to the tax letter staging, the tax return staging screen. And the tax return staging screen is going to be comparable to the tax letter staging screen in that you can see all of your clients, right, on one screen, although it can expand to multiple screens if you need to, because you can limit the number of households you see in any one particular screen. Shows you the name of the household. If there's an advisor associated with it, you can sort and filter by household. It'll show you the last action that you took on behalf of that household, and then there might be an opportunity here for next actions. So let's just kind of walk through this column by column. The review status is going to be where you can indicate where you are in terms of the review of that return. Have you requested the return? Did you not even start? So there is no return. Is the return currently in review? Have you completed the review of that return? Has the client opted out? So you're actually not even going to do a return of this particular client's tax return. Maybe it's a legacy client and they don't work with you anymore, but you're holding on to them for historical reasons. Well, you might not want to include them in your reviews for this year because it just mucks things up. So you could elect that they are going to opt out. Or maybe you have a status of client extended. So if you make a call for folks to send their returns to you in April or May, and 10 of your clients say, we're on extension, you don't want to keep asking them for their return in May and June and July, right? You want to wait closer to the October extension deadline. So you don't bug them. You know that they're working on it. You just don't have it yet. So you can mark somebody to client extended. Across the top right here, you can actually filter. So right now we've got 72 folks within the Holistiplan sample household, sample firm for 2023. We can filter these by the status. So we can filter by no return, right? So this will exclude everybody except for those folks for whom we have no return. So this would be, again, ideally used for, we've asked for the return, we just don't have it yet. Or maybe there's the return requested where we've requested it and we haven't heard back from them. We've got a status for these ones that have been uploaded, right? That one might not show, but we've got the ones where people have marked it as in review. There we go. We have uploaded, right? So these are ones that have uploaded, but we haven't had a chance to actually look at it yet. In review might be those that somebody is currently reviewing. Completed would be those where we've looked at it and we actually sent back the actual tax report, or we've had that conversation with the client about what the results of that tax review looked like. And then you have the other ones too here, again, like we mentioned, for opted out and client extended, right? So far, so good. Emily, did I miss anything in here?
Not that I eventually, I mean, I think we'll get to the create client upload link and what that could look like, or I can touch on it too,
Yeah,
from a practice management. But yeah, I think you covered all of them in that review step.
absolutely. So you can do some of these things in bulk as well. So we can click one or all of the different households where you might want to do something and actually change your action, right? So you can change to no return, return requested, change to review, completed, and what have you. But as Emily also mentioned, you can take an action within a particular household or across all of your households to create an upload link. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this tool, Holistiplan has created a system where you can create a unique link for your clients that you can cut and paste or copy and paste into an email, send it to them, and they can use that link to upload their return directly to Holistiplan. So they don't need to send it to you and then you upload it. You can create the link, send it to your client, and then your client can use that link to upload the return. That's what this links column is referring to, right? So this would be the link that originally was generated for that client, right? I think that's what you were getting to, Emily. Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. So Tanner asked a question, and I think this is an appropriate one. Is there a way to update the return status from the client's household, or can the status only be updated from the tax return staging tab? I believe that you can change the status here within the tax return staging tab. I don't believe that that same functionality exists within the household page. So you'd want to do it here, right? And the idea here too, that's why we have the last action column here to kind of remind you this is the last thing that you did with the client, but then you'd want to come back into this section remark and change it to completed. All right.
Yep.
So that's the kind of like how you use it. Emily, I'd be curious to hear from you. You've got some extensive experience kind of doing this first as a practicing advisor, but now also working with folks in the customer success side. Like, how do you see like the best practices for folks to use this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in first discussing best practice, and this may admittedly trigger or I'll self-trigger some PTSD, but going through and looking at maybe like an old way or a former way before transitioning some of this, what you're documenting, right? When you're reaching out to gather that return, you may likely, if you've already created a process, created a spreadsheet outside of Holistiplan before we offer that in campus. So I'm going to share what that could look like or what that might have looked like, just so you can see the similarities and how we can bring that all into Holistiplan now.
Yeah, I'm going to
So
stop sharing my screen, Emily, so that you can go ahead and
perfect.
start sharing on yours.
Perfect. Give me 1 second. And are you seeing what should be a Google Doc?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So admittedly, this Google Doc or this spreadsheet version is a little updated than what I had even initially created at my former firm, because I created it to be so you had some similarities to identify how this is similar to what's provided in Holistiplan. Mine was a little more simplistic in nature, where I created a legend and then I would highlight each row here on the status, basically. So the legend indicated with the coloring where they were at in the process of, did I reach out for that return already? Yes. Where is it at in the process? Have they delivered it back? If not, what are some next steps, etc. So of course, we're just listing, that client information, what tax year am I working on? Was that return requested? Yes or no? The dates that I had reached out or that you reach out to request that return. This is kind of showing a best practice too here visually, that it may take multiple attempts to get a return back from your clients. So just as the best practice, keep that in mind from maybe even like a marketing standpoint when you are asking for the return. And then the date that that's received. And then where is it at in the review status? And so I created these to be similar to what you'll see in Holistiplan, but this was also similar to what I would have been tracking, or when I am working with someone who wants to transition their process into Holistiplan, what they're doing as well. So what a power user is doing. And then I also had additional notes, and I'm going to talk about this. I think it'll be a good segue into perhaps the household tab, which will then take us into the second half of our webinar. But just keep additional notes in mind. So this was for someone who completed that review process and basically what we did as part of that tax planning review. So this is what a spreadsheet might look like if you've already created one. And then keep this in mind as I'm going to bring up now and are you seeing my staging screen now?
I am. Yep.
Perfect. So very similar to that spreadsheet, right? And this is even going to, instead of where I said, I had to manually add those clients, all of our households already added for us, right? And then I also mentioned you're updating dates, maybe when you received a return, etc. We see all of that noted for us here in that last action item. So that's where we start to get that concept of we're really streamlining this process, right? I think another important element to keep in mind, and this comes also from a personal experience. So I was a former practicing advisor, right? So that meant there was a transition moment where I actually joined Holistiplan and I had left my former firm, and they actually about a month or a couple months after I left had to reach out and say, hey, you created this spreadsheet. We need to understand the legend a little bit more than what was provided here. So I think that it's important to remember too, when you're creating that streamlined process, especially when we can keep something in campus of the software that's available to everyone, that consistency also follows suit. So if someone leaves the firm and you don't have access to asking them, what did it mean when you created this legend for the spreadsheet that you were, responsible for overseeing? Instead, everyone has this understanding. So that also from a customer success standpoint, you can add as many people that needs access to Holistiplan as you want. So I was speaking about that tax letter staging process. That same process or a similar process could carry over here when we're reaching out for returns. Maybe it's someone's responsibility, to earmark if the different review statuses, and then someone comes in and they grab, okay, these ones have all been uploaded. That's who I work on, and I put them into an in review state. And then someone else pops in and they put them into that completed review state, or whatever the process might look like. So that's how we can transition away from that manual spreadsheet, keep things consistent, keep things in-house to Holistiplan. As a firm or as a group, everyone can get access and, have oversight over the process. And then Ben had already mentioned this, or we had talked about the create upload links. I think that's a a wonderful addition that was not available when I was a practicing advisor. Would have loved to just email out an upload link to at least a few of my clients. Maybe not all of them would have appreciated an upload link process, but I know a few would have. So that can help streamline that approach to gathering the tax return, because that's one of the biggest hurdles we see, especially from new users that are developing a process, like a new process in gathering returns, is just getting that return back. So that can help alleviate or eliminate some of that hurdle.
For
And then,
sure. Emily, I'm
yeah,
just going to step in for just a second, just because
yeah.
I've seen a lot of questions come in on the chat in the Q&A box. For people who are unable, they say like, I don't see the create upload link. Um, that is
Mhm.
something that firm admins have to enable across the firm, right? So that is something that they can do in settings. I believe Carrie posted a link inside the chat with a link to our knowledge base article that talks about the client upload feature. But as Emily is navigating to right now, you just have to go, the firm admin can go into firm settings, toggle on, allow client upload links, and then you'll be able to create those links on behalf of your clients, right? And it works the same way as if you were uploading a return. It's just that one client can upload to their household. You still have access to the PDF just as if you uploaded the return. All of your security settings still are in play. So if you are a firm that is elected to auto delete your PDFs, once we've generated the tax report for a client uploaded return, it's going to delete too, right? It's just really bypassing you as the as the middle person, should you want to, right? Not everyone wants to do it, totally get it, but this is just for those folks that want to provide this to their clients. There's a mechanism to do it now.
Yep, absolutely. Good call out. So that's what I had for the tax return staging. I can transition over to the households tab now. I think that's going to set it up well for the tax reporting feature. Was there anything else you wanted me to cover here for the tax return staging though, Ben? Or do you
I
want
don't think
to?
so. I think we did a good
Okay.
job covering this. And we should have pointed out at the beginning, we do not anticipate this webinar going the full 60 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So we'll likely be giving folks some time back, but we just wanted to make sure we had enough time to spend on here as we could, and while answering some questions along the way. Just a couple more questions because they seem to be coming in for the upload
Yeah.
link. Super popular, right? You, the advisor, will receive an email when your client's return is ready, when the report is ready. You'll also get an email if, just like with always, if we found something that was wrong, like we'll let you know. So it's not just that you're sitting out there in the wilderness wondering what in the world is happening. You'll get an email from Holistiplan when the tax report is ready, because otherwise, how would you know, right? If a client actually uploaded their return or not. I believe the link does still expire in 2 weeks, but I think Carrie can check me on that. A couple of other questions, which are good ones. There is no place within the tax return staging area to include notes for other firm members to see. That is a good suggestion, and one that we'll take back to the dev team to see if there's something that we can do related to that. Because again, once you expand out of a singular advisory firm, having some sort of documentation for those notes could go a long way. And I think one other person asked before we jump to the tax reporting, if somebody asked, like, if we're seeing folks use this in lieu of a CRM. We see both, right? Some CRMs aren't really created well to capture this sort of thing. If you're using Salesforce and you're a Salesforce administrator, you can customize that thing from Kingdom Come and put whatever fields that you want in there. So I think it's also going to be one of those, your mileage may vary, right? Depending on what sort of customizations your particular CRM allows and how comfortable you are in manipulating those fields to track something like this, right? I could easily see somebody doing this inside of Salesforce, but you just have to be proficient in Salesforce for it to work. The one additional element that you do have here is that you can click directly to anything within the software, right? Not just tracking, did we get the return, but I can jump right from here to the tax report, scenario analysis, tax explainer, which admittedly I can't do inside of Salesforce, right?
Yeah. And I saw someone else had asked this too. So what triggers a status to maybe go from in process to completed? Is it when a tax report or scenario analysis is generated after the return's been uploaded, or is it all based on manual update on your end as the user? Right now, it would all be based on, to my understanding, a manual update, just because, and I think that's just because that behavior there is you've uploaded that return, you have that tax report, you have that scenario analysis, but we on our side don't necessarily know if you've already gone through that with the client. We just know that it's been uploaded. So then you would want to manually update that status to, you're either in review or you've actually completed that review once you've maybe met with that client or passed that report along to them.
That's right. And that's why you can see within those choices, you can't choose if something's been uploaded or not, right? That's a
Right.
manual, that's one that we take care of automatically because we know that the return is there. The rest of them, we have no idea, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Awesome.
Per- Perfect. So there was one comment. So to that additional notes, and Ben had mentioned, taking that, certainly take that back as feedback. But if you have completed a review, back on the spreadsheet, I had noted, I believe it was with John and Sally Smith, that they actually completed the review and we moved forward with a Roth conversion. And so if you wanted to, this could be an element or maybe a workaround to part of the process. If you are working in your households tab, there's actually this opportunity to use tags, and you could tag, for example, on John and Sally Smith. This one says 2024 QCD, but if I move forward with, say, a Roth conversion for 2024 with John and Sally Smith, and this is going a little bit into some more how-to than what we necessarily promised, but I think it's important to know this tag. So I could add, they did, I would have to manage firm tags list, and then I could add in a 2024 Roth conversion. I'd probably make that a different color just because my other one is there as, but I could tag them, and then back at the household, you could sort. So basically, based on actions that you took with a client, once the review was completed, you could sort, okay, who all had, Roth conversions in 2024 through that review process. So this is sort of a workaround to that additional notes section, but I do understand the other types of notes that you would want to add as part of that, if someone's in process of their review, because I, once again, had added those to my own homemade spreadsheet.
So Emily, while we're here, this is as good a place as any. We're just going to keep driving on your screen. So,
Yep.
what you're looking at here is the household screen for Emily's hypothetical firm, where you're seeing everybody, right, within your firm with a
Yep.
bunch of columns going across from left to right that are descriptive of something, right? The most descriptive one is obviously the one in the left-hand side, which is the household in question. If you work with units, the unit column is one that will describe which unit the particular household is in. The rest of these, and there are more of these that you can add if you want to, but there's this drop-down list of things that you could have on this household screen that didn't used to be here, right? Holistiplan did not used to have all of these items in here. These have been growing over time, this list of things you can have on the household screen as a way of, at a glance, trying to see quickly across your whole client list who fits what criteria, right? How old are they? What state do they live in? Which returns do I have for them? Which marginal bracket did they land in last year? What sort of tags that Emily was describing before have been applied? Are there any particular age milestones that apply based on the ages? And so on and so on and so forth. And over time, we kept getting requests to, well, can you add this to the household screen? Can you add this to the household screen? Can you add this to the household screen? And for a while, we said, sure, we'll add whatever you want. Until we reached a point where we realized there's just too much on here for this to be functional the way that people want it to be. We totally recognize that people want to be able to sort the data that they've got inside of Holistiplan, but continuing to just push it all onto the household screen was quite honestly making the household screen unwieldy and not what it was intended to be, which was, at a glance, seeing all of your households. So what we do have now for folks is where Emily has navigated tools and resources, and then on the far right-hand side is reporting tax. Reporting tax is not a great name, right? We totally spent the feature naming budget on other things, but it's descriptive, right? We are reporting based on tax information that is in the system. The navigation is hopefully relatively easy and straightforward. To create a new report, you just click the Add New Report button. That's the green button. You have to give each report a title, right, so that you can differentiate between different reports. So we're just going to do a little test right here. The system is going to scroll through based on the tax year that you select. So you can select all or you can select individual years. You cannot do, as best I understand, you can't do multiple years. So you can't do like 2023 and 2022. You can either do singular years or you can do all. Our expectation is that most folks are going to be doing, 1 year at a time, but who knows? Uh, you also have to select an upload date range. So, it defaults to today, which would be any returns that you've uploaded today. Our expectation is that most folks are going to be using something a little bit differently, like either year to date, all time, or custom range, but it's basically restricting the search because there's so much in here to when did you upload this particular return. So based on what Emily has chosen right now, the system is going to look at 2023 returns that have been uploaded for all time. Right now, 2023, that's the most recently completed tax year. So these aren't returns that you uploaded in 2023. These are tax year 2023 returns that you have uploaded since the beginning of history, right? Now, what shows up on that ensuing report is going to be up to you. We're going to see the taxpayer name and the taxpayer, and I think the tax year. Those I think come across no matter what, right? But everything else are all the different boxes that people have asked us over time to, can you add this to the household screen? Can you add this to the household screen? And so rather than, again, pushing things onto the household screen, we're giving you the opportunity here to build whatever report that you want with the information that we have inside. Those fields that might require a little bit more explanation, we've included a help icon next to it. So if we click on additional Medicare tax, it's going to tell you what the additional Medicare tax is, right? So again, trying to be descriptive in what these things are so that you know exactly what you want and what you can look for. So right now, we're just going to use this as our template. We can change this later, but Emily has selected marginal tax rate for ordinary income, the amount of ordinary dividends, if there's any qualified business income deduction, a few others. We won't go through everything, but go ahead and hit generate and save report so that we can take a look at what this looks like. All right, so there we go, right away, right? Test title, 2023 tax year. Again, in this screen, you can see the name of the report, the tax year, the upload date range, and then our first action that we're going to do is we're actually going to look at it. We're going to view the report right here. And we see, again, comparable to what we saw on the household screen, but with a lot more data here. So the name of the taxpayer, the return year, AGI, amount overpaid, so that would be any sort of refund, capital loss carry forwards, and so on and so on and so forth. Each of these columns is, you can sort based on any of these columns. So it's going to default, I think, to the taxpayer name, but you can click on any one of them. And so if we click on just amount overpaid, you can see at a quick glance, here were the 3 clients who got refunds last year, right? 3 clients that got refunds on their 2023 return. So from a workflow perspective, if I want to target, hey, I need to make sure that I talk to everybody who got a refund last year about making sure that their withholdings are set correctly so we don't get into that big refund opportunity again. Rather than going through every single person's return, you can see that all right here at a glance, right? If you needed to say, I need to know who's got capital loss carry forwards from the previous year, right? If I don't want to go through every single person, again, I could sort here with just capital loss carry forwards and see I only have one person because returns were so good that year that we didn't generate any losses for anybody to carry forward. But I think you kind of get the idea here, right? If we're trying to identify certain criteria so that we can isolate, these are the clients I need to reach out to for X, here's a way to do it. Now, this is a big report, right? There's maybe more in here that you would want for something targeted like that, but I could hypothetically say, I don't know, I want to see everybody, not who, I want to see everybody for who the marginal bracket was 22%. Right? So I could now sort through this. And why might I want to do that? Well, maybe that's a Roth conversion opportunity, right? I can sort through this. I can see from top to bottom my my lower bracket folks all the way through my higher bracket folks. And I could, again, isolate these folks as people for whom I want to make sure we do a Roth conversion or something else where we might want to advance income or not, right? But the idea here is to be able to create this for you at a glance so you don't have to look through your entire book one by one. The report is exportable, so you can export this into a spreadsheet. If you just click the export report button, you're going to get a CSV file or an Excel file. And now you've got all that same data, right? Households, returns, all the fields that you selected inside of your report are going to come across in this Excel file that you can then further manipulate if you want to, right? Emily, was there anything that you wanted to touch on related to this as it might relate to customer success? I gave a couple of examples, but I'm sure there are others.
Yeah, you gave a couple examples. One of the primary ones, of course, being Roth conversions, especially on the customer success side, even in support, lots of questions, strategy around Roth conversions. So I created a report that's going to start with, so if I view this report, it's going to actually seem, oh, I already added them. So I had input taxable Roth conversions, completed Roth conversions, and it actually showed nothing. So that was pretty unhelpful. And then I added in, well, what if we add in some rates? So that's basically speaking to what Ben had talked about. If I go back to the report, I do want to show how you could edit a report. So if I worked on one and then I realized, you know what, this is showing maybe too much information, not enough. If you click on edit report, you can actually add in, so this is, I want to add in marginal tax rate for ordinary income along with effective rate. So generate and save. And if I go back into that same report that we were looking at, now I can do similar to what Ben was mentioning before. You can kind of look across these particular client accounts. Are there opportunities? So from a best practice standpoint, from a customer success lens, you can also use these reports to generate ideas, right, for outreach. And I think too, when I think back to when I was in practice, so you might be working with a multi-person team. Maybe you have an associate advisor who's coming in and they're the ones responsible for maybe generating some ideas, right, to bring that over to the lead advisor. But I know from my experience, I leaned on the lead advisor to tell me a lot of times, well, who from historically you built this book, maybe you have more background than I do. This would really put a lot more power in my wheelhouse as that associate advisor to maybe bring up opportunities that the other, the lead advisor just is unaware of. Or maybe someone presented with an opportunity that wasn't there historically. So really give some opportunities for others on the team to, get involved in that tax planning conversation. If I go back to all reports, I had created a couple ones just to give you guys some ideas. So one was to the tune of, capital gains, carry loss. So if I view this report, this was a little bit pared down, right? We talked about this on that original report created, but this is where Ben was saying, you wouldn't have to select all of that criteria. You could be looking at just certain, columns. And then if we went back into charitable gifting, of course, a huge talking point as well. This would give me a nice, at least a historical lens on of the clients who I've uploaded returns for in the past, up through, in this case, the 2023 tax year, who has history of making charitable contributions that reflected on like a Schedule A. And maybe that would provide some talking points. Maybe that's just, sending out some different materials, right? And that could be through your CRM and then communicating by email, etc. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here, maybe to get in front of conversations with clients, to be more proactive in your outreach versus, sometimes as the advisor, it's more that you're in that reactive state. So we really want to create more of a proactive state as well. So yeah, so you can bring, more comprehensive planning to across your book of business.
Yep. So, I mean, I think there's like Emily was saying, there's a whole bunch that you can do on here. The world is your canvas to work on this. We do have articles in our knowledge base for both the tax return staging and the reporting tax feature, with our hope that we will have similar staging screens coming forward with other elements of the Holistiplan process, right? So we've got the tax letter, which is kind of like at the end of the process. We've got the tax return review staging, which is at the beginning of the process. The one that's missing in the middle is, well, what about the planning that I'm doing for this year, right? Is there another staging screen that we can do that's specific to the planning for the current tax year, right? That's one that we're kind of workshopping right now. For those of you who are familiar with the property and casualty, the insurance risk management tool, that is another staging screen that we can ultimately have. So there's a lot more that we can do here. This is kind of like the springboard into our attempts to try to help you all with your organizations and workflow. So stay tuned for more. I think there were a couple of questions that came in that I think are worth answering. So Noah asked the question, how is Holistiplan recognizing that a Roth conversion took place? And you actually answered it within the question. So, if the return includes Form 8606, which it's supposed to, right? If there was a conversion, 8606 is supposed to be filed with the return, even if there's no taxes due on that conversion, right? So if you're familiar with doing the backdoor Roth where you do a non-deductible contribution and then you convert it right away, there's no tax, but you're still supposed to report that on Form 8606. And one of the reasons why you're supposed to do that, it seems kind of silly, but each conversion has its own 5-year period where you got to wait 5 years before the gains on that can be withdrawn tax free. So that's why you're actually supposed to file those 8606s every time you do a conversion. So yes, that's how we would pick it up, because we do read Form 8606. It does show up, if you've ever looked, as an observation on the tax report when it's included in the return. We'll say you did a conversion of X thousand dollars, and I think it goes on to say like of which X thousand dollars more were taxable. I'm trying to think of what else there were that I wanted to touch on with that. That might have been it. So, we've still got a little bit more time. I know that, so William asked, what was that form? That's Form 8606. So that's the form that's supposed to be included. It's not just for Roth conversions, right? It's actually, that's one of its use cases, but it's also supposed to be when you do a withdrawal from an IRA and there was basis, right? So elements of the IRA that you didn't receive a tax deduction for, it actually walks through the calculation of, well, how much of your distribution is actually taxable and how much of it is a return of basis based on the pro rata amounts of basis relative to the total return, right? So Noah asked if the 8606 is not included, could we tell Holistiplan there was a conversion so it would show up in reports? I don't think so, because we're pulling that data directly from what we've extracted from the return. All right. Emily, is there anything else, any sort of parting gifts that we want to leave folks with other than, appreciating them showing up this close to the end of the year? We know it's a busy time for everybody, but we also appreciate everybody coming to this webinar so you can learn how we're trying to help you give these tools and so you can make better use of your Holistiplan experience overall.
Yeah, I think you captured it well, Ben. Thank you everyone for joining us. And if you do have questions around like process or practice management, feel free to lean on us on the success side of things. It's just success@holistiplan.com. We'd be happy to put, some resources in your hands. Just, if you're a new user, you want to get started with us, or if you've been with us and you just want to be utilizing the tool even more, happy to help.
Wonderful. So Emily and I will stick around for a couple minutes just in case there are any more lingering questions. But after that, we're going to give a salute and a head out about our way. For those of you that don't want to stick around to see the amazing finale and the credit spoiler at the end, by all means, go about your day. But we'll stick around for just a couple minutes just to see if there are any lingering questions.
Yeah.
How can we ask our firm to open the tax letter? Michael, that's a great question. I'm not really sure how best to answer that. Is that one where your firm has not turned on that resource? Is that what you're getting at? I think that's what you might be getting at. And I mean, if it's a how do you do it? Yeah, that's above my pay grade. I can't tell the Baird folks to do it, but I wish just keep asking them, and eventually, hopefully, they'll see the light, right? Can you reorganize columns in the reporting tax reports? In what way? Emily, do you want to open that back up? Do you have that screen?
Yeah. Yeah. Here and
Let's just view it.
report.
Because I think the question is, can you move them around? And I don't know that you can. I can't remember if you can move them around. I think they just show up in the order that they are. Because I don't think you can go in here and I think they're just going to show up in the order in which they're kind of laid out in that screen. I don't know that for sure, but I don't believe that the columns themselves within the screen are movable. But if you export the report, obviously you can.
Right.
You can manipulate them in the resulting Excel file. Okay.
Alana's answering it, and she's probably getting to this. Does the success team host webinars? We do. So we are in charge of welcoming all of our new users to the platform. So we right now host new user orientation, stepping into 2025 and throughout next year. That could change. You could see some other webinars popping up, but for all like webinars that we're hosting as current users on the platform, at your dashboard page, there is, and I can just share it since we have a couple minutes here. When you're at your dashboard, there's a spot. So here's your on-demand webinars for popular webinars. But as you scroll down, and it's looking a little lacking, right? Because we're approaching the end of the year. We don't want to inundate you with a bunch of new webinars, but take a look at your upcoming webinars. That's where we'll be posting them throughout the upcoming season. Great question.
Oh my goodness. Okay, they keep coming. So Chris, what's the best way to note a client who does Roth conversions every year so we can see what clients in what years converted tags? That's probably, I think that's either going to be there. You could run a report though, right? You could use this tax reporting because again, any conversion that they did is going to show up if they did it right. On form 8606 and then ultimately in that report. But if you wanted to have it on that household page, you could use tags to illustrate, not just the year of a Roth conversion, but just Roth conversions at all. Tags are really, a Wild West sort of approach, right? Holistiplan doesn't provide any tags. It's really totally up to you. And it's not because we don't want to, but it's more because we have so many firms and each firm is different and wants their own things, which is totally understandable. So, we allow you to customize with whatever flags you want. The only caveat is that only firm admins can create flags. It's not every user. So if you are not a firm admin and you want a flag, you just have to go to your firm admin to get them to create one. Any thoughts on adding more detail on W-2 income instead of just Schedule B income sources? No. But I'm also I'm not 100% sure what that would be. So, if you wanted to ask us about that, you can always email into the support or, suggest a feature through the website if that's something that you think would be a valuable addition to the program. So, okay. Okay. Is there a way to report on those clients who have utilized QCDs in the past? Man, I wish there was. Right. Here's the challenge. The way that QCDs get reported on a tax return are not great, right? All that it shows is just 3 little letters that say QCD on line, what is that, 6, 5,
Yeah,
4?
Yeah.
It's one of those, 4, 5, or 6. I know it's not 7. 7 is capital gains. 6 might be Social Security.
I think it's 4.
Yeah, I think it's 4. And we don't read that portion of the return anyway. Like we're reading the specific boxes where the data is entered, so like the taxable amount or the the total amount. So the reality is even Holistiplan can't necessarily tell you that you did a QCD. What we can do is we can identify that there's a difference in your total distribution and your taxable distribution, but we also don't know what that difference necessarily is, right? That could be a rollover, right? It could be just a straight up distribution where you got some of it back as return of basis. We don't know for sure that it's QCD, and the way that the OCR technology is constructed, trying to read those 3 letters that don't always get added, by the way, it's just not going to read it consistently enough for us to be able to tell you with certainty and definitiveness that somebody did a QCD every year. But I appreciate the question. That would be awesome if we could. Okay. Looks like the Q&A box is cleared out. Looks like the chat box is cleared out. So Emily, I'm going to thank you for your time today. Thank you for everybody who stuck around till the sweet end. This was not a bitter end, Emily. It was only the beginning. But appreciate everybody's time today, and we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Take care, everybody.
See ya.